Prez. And if this looks a little bit familiar to you, it is actually because it is written by the same author and illustrator who wrote Rosie Revere, Engineer, Iggy Pep, Architect, and Ada Twist, Scientist. She does a whole series of books, and her name is Andrea Beaty. Let's read our story. Sofia Valdez, future Prez. Sofia was a baby who got things done, helping her family before she turned 1. She and Abuelo went out every week to help elderly friends around Blue River Creek who couldn't get out and about on their own, and with no place to gather, were stuck home alone, raking the leaves, taking pets for a walk, or just dropping by for a treat and a talk. Sofia Valdez did as much as she could for her family and friends and her whole neighborhood. A dreamer, a doer, a real-life go-getter. Most people like good, but Sofia liked better. Each morning, Abuelo walked Sophie to class. They walked home again along Blue River Pass, making plans, munching cookies, Abuelo and girl, except for that Tuesday when Pup saw the squirrel. Does everybody see the squirrel up at the top of the page? Uh-oh. With a howl, Pup took off, racing all through town, over, under, beneath, and around. Sophia scrambled to try to keep up with the hollering man and the bellowing Pup. Up the squirrel ran to the top of a hill made of leftover junk for the local landfill. The landfill is where all of the trash goes. So it's supposed to be not next to people, because would you want to smell the trash all day long? They reached the tip top of that mountain of trash, which jiggled and broke with an ear-splitting crash. Down they all tumbled and hit with the thud on a moldy old pumpkin surrounded by mud. Ouch, cried Abuelo, and he struggled to stand. A dangerous mess, he said, grasping her hand. The next day, Sofia walked to school solo, but it wasn't the same without her Abuelo. This is not right, declared young Sofia, who glared at Mount Trashmore and got an idea. The very next morning at dawn, she planted a sign at the front of the lawn. She stood back and smiled, and Pup gave a bark. Get rid of Mount Trashmore. Let's build a new park. Each of her neighbors had something to say about benches and fountains and places to play, meeting spots, gardens, a basket for bees, a rubber duck pond, and a kiosk for cheese. She drew every thought on her map of the park, which was perfectly perfect by 1:15 dark. She drifted to sleep in her soft, cozy bed, and then bam! She woke when a thought smacked her head. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized each one of her neighbors had said, "Let me know when it's done." They all thought Sofia could build it alone. But how could one girl do so much on her own? The weight of that thought made her tender heart ache as night thunder growled and she lay wide awake. Then dawn brought a storm and the gloomy sky wept, and the heart-sick Sofia finally slept. Abuela baked cookies when Sophie got up. He gave her a bagful and sneaked one to Pup. He blinked back a tear as he hugged his Sofia. For courage, he whispered, "Te amo, mi vida." Sophia's knees wobbled and she felt weak inside. She looked at his ankle and quite nearly cried, though she didn't feel brave or courageous at all. Sofia Valdez went to face City Hall. Now, every city has something called City Hall, and that's where the people who work for the city, who make big decisions for the city, they all work there. so that if you need to talk to the mayor, if you need to talk to the people in charge of the libraries or the parks or all of those things, they all work at City Hall. And it is usually not far away from a library. The mayor's office sent her to room 401, the Blue River Creek Department of Fun, which sent her downstairs to room 302, the office of duck ponds and cool things to do, to the office of monkeys and the department of cheese, the division of fountains and matings and bees, then down to the basement, so musty and cramped, where all the town's papers were sorted and stamped. And that's where the clerk said what no one else did. You can't build a new park. You're only a kid. The words smacked Sofia deep down in her heart. Her plan was kiboshed before it could start. I think, said Sofia, I think that law's wrong. But her second grade voice didn't sound very strong. The clerk said clearly, it cannot be done. Do you have any questions? And Sofia said, 1. If you were me and I was you and he was your grandpa, what would you do? Well, said the clerk. Then she said nothing at all. She thought and she thought. Then she sent out a call to every employee throughout City Hall. The entire government of Blue River Creek crammed into the office to hear Sophie speak, but her words jumbled up and her cheeks turned bright red as a dozen emotions rushed into her head. Her heart beat so loudly she thought it would crack, and the crowd leaned in closer, but Sofia leaned back. Then her arm brushed the edge of the old cookie sack. And that was the moment when Sofia first knew being brave means doing the things you must do. Though your heart cracks with fear, though you're just in grade 2. She took a deep breath, looked the mayor in the eye, and though her knees wobbled, she held her head high. Sofia started talking and she spelled out her plan, why it all mattered and how it began. And once she got rolling, she had lots to say about meeting spots, monkeys, and places to play, and other ideas for things they could do to help the town elders and other folks too. She had thoughts on the library and thoughts on the zoo, and perhaps a way to combine the two. All right, cried the mayor, go start a petition. If the town wants a new park, we'll form a commission. A petition is when people say, you know, we want to do this. And so they write something up saying, this is what we want to do. And they take it to their neighbors and they get their neighbors' support and get as many names as they can. And then that goes back to the city. If the city says, okay, you know what, you've got a lot of signatures on here. That means a lot of people think it's important. Okay, we'll get behind it. So that's a petition. If the town wants a new park, we'll form a commission. And so young Sofia got right to work with some help from her family and Pup and the clerk. Then others joined in, not all, but a few, like Miss Lila Greer and the kids in grade 2. There were hearings and surveys and taxes to figure, then bulldozers, cranes, and a blue bigger digger. They all built that park. That's how it got done. With the hard work of, by, and for everyone. But it began with the dream of one person, just one, who laced up her shoes and then led the way to help Blue River Creek get a new place to play. Now, every evening till long after dark, the town comes together at Citizens Park. They all hold this truth to be self-evident that Sofia Valdez could grow up to be president. Until then, Sofia, that real-life go-getter, helps Blue River Creek get better and better.